Good afternoon. I know post-lunch is not the happiest session. It's my pleasure to keep you all awake, and I hope to do this. As I understand, this is the non-techie session, so hopefully we will have some insights into cybercrime as we go forward. And cybercrime evolves, so it's going to be interesting. Should I start, or are we waiting for some more people? Okay, in the not-so-distant future, what I can certainly see and what you all will see is a future where we are going to have, as we switch off our alarm early in the morning, our coffee maker will spring to life, so will our juice maker. And we are going to have our dosa batter beginning to roll. We are going to have our mixie starting our chutneys. And within 10 minutes after our shower, we're going to go down and have our breakfast. As we complete it and put down our coffees and tea saucer, there will be a trigger sent to our garage, and the garage will remotely open, and our self-driving car will move out with its GPRS to take us to our destination. Not very far, next 10 to 15 years, ladies and gentlemen. So this is the state of information technology today. That's the good side, and all of us would be excited about this. But along with it will also come some of the hazards that we are going to see into the future. Topmost of this is what we have as a topic here, cybercrime. So I presume everybody is familiar with cybercrime, right? Cybercrime is nothing but any kind of incident with a malicious intention or an event or activity using a computer. And obviously, this is with the intention to do an activity which is obviously criminal in nature. Crime is as old as the story of mankind itself. We see it right from BC. We see thieves, we see criminals. So it's interesting. Anybody has an idea how old cybercrime is? Many of you will probably think it was in the last century, right? This would be your thought, considering computers were there only as recently as that period. Cybercrime first took place in 1820. Surprising, right? No computers at that time. So the origins of a computer were made by a gentleman called Jack Jacquard. Today his name is synonymous with jacquard, the fabric that is woven. And Jacquard made a very simple machine that went through a series of operations or steps to control his looms, which therefore laid off his manual labor. And the first act of cybercrime was that his labor found they were going to be laid off, and they actually broke down that system. This is the first recorded cybercrime. But please remember, as I said, the abacus is considered the earliest computer. So they are probably crimes dating right back to early centuries. Cybercrime as categories has two categories. One in which we use the computer to target other computers, or we use the computer to target individuals or somebody else with the intent of committing a crime. So as a target and as a weapon. All of us, I think, are familiar about MH370. About 2 years ago, 2014, MH370 disappeared off the radar. And it has been a most enduring mystery ever since. We've never found significant wreckage or debris to announce that this is where this plane actually landed or crashed. I think most of us are familiar with the episode. We do know it disappeared over the Indian Ocean, largely because the satellite pings indicated a probable path over the Indian Ocean. One of the most recent theories that has been put forward, and it's not one of these usual wanna have kind of conspiracy theories, it's been given a great deal of weightage. It has been written by a French lady, and you can look her up in the internet, and her theory has a lot of compelling evidence to it. She says when MH370 took off, there is the Diego Garcia Island, which is controlled, as you know, by the Americans, and a lot of futuristic IT work is happening in this island. So she says that the Americans were attempting to actually take remote control of the aircraft. They took the remote control and they were not able to revert it back. And because this would become an incidental incident, she therefore says they hushed the entire matter up. A lot of people take this theory pretty seriously because today, as we all know, a satellite is available all across the world. At any point of time, there is a satellite viewing activities. So it's simply not possible for an enormous aircraft to disappear off the air. So when you look at cybercrime, this is the kind of evolution of cybercrime we're going to see as we go forward. With every advancement of IT, we're going to see the criminals getting savvy, more and more savvy. Your criminal will not look like the ones we see in our blockbuster movies. They're not going to be large, brawny guys holding AK-56 or pistols. It could be a nerdy, pimply teenager sitting in a little room in a nondescript alley somewhere close to you. If you look at cybercrime and the categories that the FBI, who's done extensive work, so they have their own cybercrime unit. Even India has a cyber cell today. More of that as we go forward. You look at the categories of cybercrime today are still fairly, in my mind, less damaging to us. It's still the usual viruses, it's employees taking advantage of internet privilege in their office or using free bandwidth, and it's unauthorized access by insiders. So still fairly non-painful, if you ask me. But is this what we are going to see as we go forward? So before we go into the futuristic scene, let's look at what you and I have encountered or will encounter as we go forward. So I'm going to talk briefly, and I think many of you probably have encountered this. You may not know the names. We're going to talk about hacking in a bit, malware, computer vandalism, cyber stalking, which I think is close to many of us. If you've been following news, we'll see that in a bit as well. Child and woman pornography, phishing and wishing, identity theft, DOS or denial of service attacks, cyber terrorism, and of course, software piracy. So these are only a small list, ladies and gentlemen, of the kind of cybercrimes we can face. But due to paucity of time and the nature of my audience, this is what we'll look at. Let's see the kinds of attacks we can see. In February 2016, a 16-year-old teenager was picked up in England. It was unusual in that this teenager was picked up in UK by American federal agencies who needed special permission to come into England and pick up the young boy. Subsequently, his identity and name are still not released. The only identity that was released is Cracker with Attitude. That's the name of this young boy. And he is famous/infamous because he literally cracked or hacked into thousands of FBI and CIA agent accounts. So he had literally the lives of Secret Service agents in his hands. To make the matter even more desperate or even more meaningful, as he said in his own words, he actually hacked into the CIA and the FBI chief's American Online actual email, okay, which is pretty significant. It's difficult. And for good measure, the chief of Pentagon as well. So this is the kind of nature of hacking. What does it mean in your and my language? It simply means an illegal intrusion into your system or network. And of course, because every hacker desires publicity, government websites continue to be the largest targets. What does this mean for you and me as individuals? Many of you probably run small businesses off your home computers, or you probably have a set of systems in your offices, small but meaningful, with intranet within, maybe connected, and definitely to the internet. This is one potential danger that you can see, especially if some of you are in the financial business, legal business. There is high degree of possibility that you can have a legal intrusion coming into your system. The other piece which you and I are always plagued with, right, is called malware. What is malware? It's nothing but malicious software. And it comes very innocuously. It comes looking very nice. So you will have lots of emails, and then you'll see one email saying, invoice attached. Now, which of us don't want to see an invoice attached, potentially chance of a payment? We'd want to click this. This immediately triggers out an alert to what we call a botnet. Bot for robo, net for network. The botnet sends out a message so that it triggers a malicious payload which will come and attack your computer. So a whole series of viruses, interesting pieces. A Trojan horse, which simply means your system will work beautifully until one fine day there's some hidden code out there which will trigger on a particular day or on a particular event, and it will then begin to infect your system. You can also have email bombing, you can have webjacking, so many other interesting pieces that go into the world of the cyber criminal. The other interesting piece, computer vandalism. So here, people are not stealing or misusing data. What they are doing is damaging or destroying data. Again, a lot of this is to gain publicity. So in the last 3 months, Indian embassies have put out a watch notice for 2 unlikely names, Intruder and Romantic. Intruder and Romantic is the alias of 2 gentlemen, I would hesitate to call them gentlemen, of 2 individuals who have attacked these 6 embassy websites, and they say, India, don't mess with us, Pakistan Army Zindabad, you get the message. So these people are high on our watch list because they are hackers who are entering in and vandalizing the website, changing its contents to make it look meaningful in terms of their own message. So vandalism, another big case. Imagine your horror if you open up your official website and you find instead of your material, there's something terribly off in that piece. That is a typical piece of vandalism. Can happen to many of us, ladies and gentlemen, if we do have people who are competing with us and who are desperate enough to ensure that we are damaged. How do we protect ourselves as common people? The answer is simple. One is, do get yourself a good antivirus package. There are several out there. I wouldn't like to name them because obviously it shouldn't be a branding purpose for any company, but you will find excellent pieces. They will update themselves every day because the databases get updated on the internet. They will check automatically for any mail that comes into your system, and they will clean it out. For any existing virus, they will clean it out. And they'll also keep tabs on what is happening in terms of information. For those of you who are looking at even greater kinds of detail, do look at a firewall. So a firewall is nothing but a protection around your systems to ensure that outsiders don't enter it. This is a little more expensive proposition, but if you hold confidential or proprietary data, it is well worth it. Now at this point, actually I do come to piracy at the end, but this is a caution especially to Indian audiences. Please don't buy pirated software because it's cheaper. Let me tell you, it won't work just like the original. You're not going to get support, and God forbid it itself has a hidden virus within it. So please resist the impulse to save yourself a few bucks. In this matter alone, please make sure you buy original licensed software. It saves you a great deal of pain and agony in the long run. Okay, other ways in which we can protect ourselves. Please don't put in any software that you think looks good. Oh, here's some latest Tamil songs. Let's install this. And then you get lots of ads and you start installing it and then you don't know what's happening. And a lot of viruses are getting attached. Uninstall unnecessary software because that software is not being used by you. It has the potential to attract other pieces of malware, so remove this as well. In the worst case scenario, and your system does die on you, it can be a horrible piece. So please keep backups. As simple as today having a USB or pen drive. Otherwise, buy yourself a hard disk. Please do these backups once a week in your own interest. Because if you lose your computer, it's like losing part of your life. At least I think so. And finally, check your security settings. So you have very easy, all of us here who are non-techie can still do this. Go into Windows, check your security settings, and you can set them clear and good. These are absolutely good measures for a start to begin protecting yourself. What other crimes can we see? Most insidious and sadly the most widely used, pornography. So we have criminal activity where actually we have live sexual acts being carried, they're being filmed, and still Interpol is not able to find those sites. 2 years ago, a friend of mine called me urgently. She caught her daughter talking in a chat room, and the girl had met up. She was 16. She met up a very attractive young man of 19 in Chennai, and they had decided to meet. My friend absolutely refused to send her daughter alone, decided to take a ride in the car to at least drop her to the cafe coffee day where she was supposed to rendezvous with this young teenager. My friend got off, entered into cafe coffee day, told her daughter, I'm sitting in a separate table, you don't even have to acknowledge me, I'm going to walk away as soon as your young friend comes. Very modern young mother. About 5 minutes later, the girl received a call on her cell phone. Her date for the evening was coming in, and he was close to 40 years old. So please understand that the people who befriend your young children or even young people in the audience may not necessarily be the people who are there in real life. Okay? This is the beginning of trapping young people into systemic acts which could eventually even lead to pornography, because a lot of blackmail, other pieces walk into this. So women and child pornography, one of the most significant, most widely used areas of cybercrime, something which you and I need to watch for. And we'll see how we can protect ourselves in just a bit. This case particularly close to Chennai Vasi hearts, because we saw the sad case of Swati, who had typically been a victim of cyber stalking. She actually had somebody who came in from a remote village who otherwise would not have had access to her, who befriended her on Facebook through another name, came here to the city, stalked her through knowing where she was, through her cell phone, followed her physically, got rejected by her 3 times, and then proceeded quite systematically and quite cold-bloodedly to mangle her to death. So cyber stalking, some warnings please. If you are getting cyber stalked, if you are getting harassing messages, please don't take these lightly. The people who are doing it are psychologically affected, and they will continue to stalk you, and the less you protest, the more bold they're going to make the advances. So it's important that you take cognizance of this, because this will be an ever-increasing threat for yourself. So anybody who follows a person, persistently turns up at place of business, makes harassing phone calls, leaves written messages or objects embarrassing you, vandalizes your property, are typically cases that you should report. Please do not maintain this in a very casual front. Protect yourself. This is just common sense. On the net, don't project your name, don't project your identity, stay anonymous, choose a very, very nondescript name. Please learn etiquette, don't harass others, and don't get harassed. Some of us begin to think when we are speaking to a foreigner, friendliness is mistaken for over-friendliness, and we begin to think we now can cultivate a deeper relationship. Most people overseas have very transactional kind of conversations. How are you doing? Good. India's fine, fine. They're not looking for a friendship. They're not looking for a relationship. So please don't get there. Then when we move on, we can also say, let us not respond. Some of us have the urge to respond, saying, get out of my life. Please leave me alone. This time I'm not going to report you. Please don't do those things. Just ignore them and hope that they would go away. Make sure at least 5 people know about this. Make sure you get out of any kind of situation quickly. Don't be there and don't get provoked into these pieces. If you have offending messages, please store them. They're good for us, and we can give them into the cyber cell. Of course, good for us to learn about internet piracy, privacy, all the other pieces that go into the internet, because these are matters that will impact us further and further. So quickly, let's look at other pieces. Phishing and spear phishing. This reminds me of an incident about 12 years ago. My father-in-law is in E-Road, and he phoned me because I was an IT person, and he said, my close friend wants to talk to you. And his close friend, who was a chartered accountant, he was a literate man, he told me, I'd like 2 pieces of information from you. And I said, sure, how can I help you? He first said, the first you may not know, but I do want to ask you, what is the largest size of suitcase you can buy in Chennai? So I said, I really don't know. I can check with you. Are you traveling abroad? He said, no, I need a set of suitcases to put in about 1.2 crores. I'm talking about a period almost a decade ago. So though I was an IT professional, believe me, I hadn't heard that kind of money. So I said, fantastic. I'm going to ask you a question at the end of this conversation, which is, where are you going to get that 1.2 crores from? And the second he told me was, I need to get to Chennai and I need to meet a person. I'll have to follow instructions on email. Will you be able to help me? And I said, I'm sure I can do this. And then I asked him, please tell me what this is all about. What's the background about? He said, no, I've received a mail from a gentleman who is in Africa, and he's got this money. His family is under a coup. He's got lots of money. He needs to transfer it. He's found me. He's desperate for help. He's going to transfer this money to my account. And what I need to do is just give him 2%. I have to pay him upfront 2%, and then he's going to give me back about 7-8% of this 1.2 crores, and I'm going to hand it over in a suitcase. And that's when I told him, stop. Have you paid it yet? And he said, yes. So I said, please go and tell your bank to immediately stop the transaction. It was already too late. In those days, cyber transactions couldn't be tracked in the way we did. So this gentleman learned a very costly lesson. Today, we are all familiar with this piece, which we call phishing, right? Spelled as PH, but it's pronounced as F, typically and literally phishing. So when you receive calls or you receive an email saying, you are lucky, I found you today, and I'm sure all of us get these mails. Please don't be befuddled. These are just schemes which want to take your money away. I think a lot of us have got more savvy, but it keeps happening. Today, we've reached into the next stage where you'll get a letter, and if you're banking with, let's say, HDFC or ICICI or any other bank, you'll get a nice official letter. You'll also get an ID which says someone at ICICI or HDFC saying, dear Mr. or Miss so-and-so, we're just validating all your information. Please provide us your ID and password so that we can actually get this information in place. Please remember, no bank will ever ask you over email for your ID and password. For that matter, neither will they ask it to you over a phone. Do not ever respond with any personal information either over email or over the phone. Believe me, these are scamsters, and they have mastered the art of actually duplicating these sites. Yeah? When in doubt, please call back your local bank branch and ask them whether this is really true and whether you should be doing this. Today, we have a next generation called wishing. Okay? This wish is on their part, not on your part. Wishing is the next level where we use what we call social engineering. So what this young team, I'm presuming it's young, it could be old too, team of fraudsters do is typically call people who are in the retirement range. Old people sitting at home, don't have much to do, extremely happy to have a cell phone and to talk to someone. They begin by talking to these older people, talking to them and building an equation with them, saying that they are from a financial institution or even from their bank, and they get a lot of information and background based on that conversation. So they begin to build a virtual relationship, and then they begin to pick up the information. Lots of people have lost, especially in the older age category, have begun to lose money as a result of these schemes. So there are gangs even today operating out of Gurgaon, which will still, who the police have not been able to catch, who are still getting this information. So please be very careful. You will get calls. Remember, TRI has banned any marketing calls on your phone. So if you get a call like this, please say, please note you're banned by TRI. You should not be marketing to me. And then close the call out. Do not give them any information whatsoever. Not how much bank account you hold, not which bank you are, not your name, nothing. Protecting ourselves, don't give any personal details to strangers. Please don't send sensitive information through email. Please check out who the person is by calling back the respective organization. Very important, the last point is something that we should pay attention to. A lot of us see a link and we click it. and then we actually send it on its way. The link potentially is again a botnet which sends out message to series of other links, and therefore you're going to get attacked. So please, if you want to see a link, take the pain to type it into your browser. Do not click the link. Important for us. Okay. Lots of us are shopping virtually on e-commerce sites. Words of wisdom from the internet. It's good advice, and I think you should follow this. So please first check the URL. You will have a protect icon. You can see it clearly. Make sure that padlock is there. Make sure that your URL or website begins with HTTPS, which is the universal protocol for you. Never send any payment information. Make sure that all of this occurs only in a secure environment. It will say so very clearly. And also make sure your internal browser, which could be Internet Explorer or Chrome, is always updated to the most current version, because security runs in the background. So these are good words of wisdom from the internet. If you shop in e-commerce sites, please make sure you look at this. Okay, another big piece, identity theft and impersonation. As we move into an age of electronic signatures, we will find more and more identity theft and impersonation. Almost 30,000 people in the US were found to be encashing their pensions of their spouses or children who had died several years previously, because they knew all the ways of their identity and they could impersonate them successfully. So while this was something which had to be looked at more closely because it was more of a case where they had to survive, identity theft is important to professionals, because if your identity is robbed today in the world, it's as good as you are dead. So please be very careful with identity theft and impersonation. The other big piece, if somebody doesn't like you, it's very simple to stop you working. They do what we call a DOS attack. A DOS attack is a denial of service attack, which simply means they will bombard your particular email with thousands and thousands of email. And obviously your email cannot handle it, and it collapses, and you will not be able to receive anything. So this is also systematically used in corporate espionage. So many of us who tried to shop in the first round when Amazon announced would have found we would not have gotten to the site at all. This is simply because already thousands of mails and thousands of logins had occurred into Amazon India, and they simply couldn't proceed. So these are typically cases where you will find people are trying to stop you in your tracks because they feel you should not progress. This would stop you probably for a couple of hours or maybe more than that. So DOS, big attack that we can see. Okay, I don't know how many people heard about Ashley Madison. Anybody here heard about Ashley Madison? Okay, so Ashley Madison, incidentally, is an interesting website. It's a site put out in the US, and its tagline is, "Life is short, have an affair." So essentially this website says, listen, married people, you don't have to be bored. Since your life is short, you can have an affair, pay money, enter my secure account, we'll find you a date, a real life date. You can cheat on your spouse. Nobody is ever going to know about it. This was a site, before you start laughing loudly, it had huge income, okay? It was a highly potential paying site, and it worked beautifully. Everybody raked in money until last year. Some vigilantes decided, or maybe some spouse who felt he had enough of his cheating spouse, we don't know who, hacked into Ashley Madison and released the names of all the cheating spouses into the internet, announcing to the world that here you are, if your spouse cheated and paid for that privilege, here are the names. There were umpteen number of suicides. While we all smile and think it can never happen in India, let me tell you a sobering statistic. About 20,000 users were from Chennai, okay? Higher than Mumbai, Delhi, and Bangalore, just to give you a sobering statistic. So Ashley Madison was put out, the site went down, the people scrambled. So that was the first part of it. Now the second part, a lot of people got into the act and they said, oh, here's the names of these cheating spouses, here's their email, and a lot of those people began receiving mail. Listen, we are not only going to tell your wife or husband who knows about this, but we are going to tell your friends, your colleagues, your company. So how about coughing up some money? So as a result, cyber terrorism also began because people began to get affected and money started getting collected. They were virtually held to ransom. Several suicides occurred as a result of this. I'm sure umpteen divorces. We don't know the pieces. So Ashley Madison has actually come back. They put in a lot of legal action. They're actually back, but they are never going to be used the way as before. At least I don't think so. So just to give you an idea of how cyber terrorism is something that impacts us. So those of us who like to chat in rooms think it's harmless, or virtual sex doesn't hurt me, I'm not really cheating on my spouse, it's only an honest talk, probably the person on the other side. First of all, let me tell you, when we talk, a lot of this could be men, but women, you might find actually the other person is of your same sex and having a jolly good laugh, having this little chat with you, okay? Just a caution. And the second part is, even if you do have it, it can get recorded, it can get copied, and it can stay. So it's very important for us to also note this. How do we ensure that we stay safe? Okay, so whether you're cheating or whether you're getting cheated, that's a personal piece I won't ask you. What you certainly need to do, go into your browser, look at your history, and your history will immediately tell you where you've been, what sites you visited, how much time you've actually spent there. So make sure you clear your cache of history. If you have young children, if you have teenagers, please again check the cache, please check out their history, find out where they've been. It's a very easy operation. You pull down the menu, you'll find history, pull the history, and you'll see who, at least you'll know who logged in, meaning you'll know that there's a login from that computer, what was the time, what was the site, and what are the timings. So this, I think, is interesting and important to keep ourselves safe. Also remember, as we get more savvy, the criminal gets more savvy. Today, as we encrypt information, the decryption has also become equally difficult. So today, criminals are using state-of-the-art encryption. Sometimes it's simply impossible to break. Therefore, a lot of virtual financial transactions routing across the world are simply not traceable by the world's cyber Interpol. Protecting yourself, as I said, if you have really, really sensitive information, please buy an encryptor. So therefore, the person you send will be the only other person who knows how to decrypt it. They would have the actual code to open up your message. Okay? You also please be aware that there are Information Technology Acts. It was amended in India as well, and you can take advantage of Cyber Cell. Our Cyber Cell is very savvy. They will be able to assist you much more than in other countries, simply because we have a lot of good IT techs. As I said, last but not least, please don't pirate, and please don't encourage other pirates as well. Buy software in your own interest because you need to be protected. You also need to ensure your software works well. So whenever you buy any software, please protect yourself. Don't buy pirated software. Simple common sense in this world of IT. Okay. Safety first. Be careful, be aware, be safe. So that's what I have, very preliminary message for you all. This is a very basic piece on cybercrime, but activities will continue to get more and more complex. So keep an eye on this. As we move to self-autonomous cars, the world might happen to ransom you in your self-autonomous or self-driving car. So these are interesting things we'll see in the future. Thank you very much for your attention. I'd be happy to take a couple of questions. Yes, please. Yes, you're right.
I think that is called cookies, right?
Yeah, so you have two pieces. Yeah.
That's why I'm asking. I think that's called cookies, right?
Correct. You also have cookies. You also have...
How to prevent that actually?
So you have a setting again in your browser that says do not permit cookies, which means it cannot send a message back to the originating site that you are the person who's requested this information. It's a simple setting in your browser. When you go and look for privacy
Okay, it's
settings,
in a browser. Okay.
yeah, in your browser settings on the right hand,
Okay.
you just draw it down and you will find it in privacy settings, and you can tell it disable cookies. When you say that, it won't come up. You can also disable ads, which are very irritating because a lot of ads will keep popping up.
Correct.
So you can also disable the ads. Also, very interestingly,
But that is
since-
asking money actually. If you want to disable ads.
is it? No.
Yeah.
Google-
Yahoo and all that right
Yeah,
side you
Google and internet will not ask you. You can disable ads.
Okay.
But if you want to prevent spam, then yes, sometimes you do have to pay an additional piece. But usually ads it allows you to do. You can just say disable it.
Okay.
So I would like to tell you there is, as we speak, a law case or legal case against Google because Gmail actually today when you and I write certain words like house and so on, purchase house, so on, Google is actually picking up our personal email and it is putting out ads. So you'll find very strangely ads that look something like what you've been writing your mail on. So
Right.
today there's a legal case that it's an invasion of privacy. Google is still fighting it. So you'll continue to get those personalized ads for yourself because they're actually looking at your email. It's not technically allowed.
Okay.
Any other questions? So thank you very much and have a pleasant afternoon.